Oklahoma has spent the last 15 years expanding a strategy built around tax credits, cash rebates, exemptions, and reimbursements for major businesses. This video asks a simple question. Did that strategy deliver enough jobs, wages, and lasting prosperity to justify what Oklahoma families gave up? The evidence suggests we need a new economic development strategy. One that invests first in people, workforce, health, education, and communities. Oklahoma's shadow budget now approaches $1.5 billion when tax credits, cash rebates, reduced tax rates, exemptions, and major set-asides are brought into the same public accountability discussion. Three major business incentive streams alone represent roughly $850 million using available annual or annual average measures. The figures are not a single audited annual total, but they show the scale of public money being committed outside the normal debate over schools, healthcare, roads, and workforce development. Investment/New Jobs is the much larger program and deserves its own article. Quality Jobs is the best place to begin because it is easier to understand. Oklahoma sends participating companies quarterly cash rebates based on qualifying payroll. It is also a good place to start because many of the largest recipients are familiar names. The Thunder ownership entity, Boeing, Paycom, Devon Energy, Continental Resources, and others. Oklahoma has a separate small employer quality jobs program. The regular quality jobs program was originally aimed at manufacturing but expanded into other eligible industries. In recent years, it has been used heavily by manufacturing and oil and gas companies. The stated purpose is not just to add headcount. It is to attract, expand, and retain major employers with jobs that improve wages and strengthen Oklahoma communities. PFM Group Consulting, the independent evaluator retained by the Oklahoma Incentive Evaluation Commission, identified a wage problem. Under the existing test, a company can qualify by meeting the lower of the average wage in its county or a statewide threshold. That threshold was $37,785 for the most recent year examined. PFM found cases where companies paid significantly less than the county average and still qualified. PFM recommended requiring participating companies to meet the applicable county average wage. The Incentive Evaluation Commission then adopted PFM's quality jobs recommendations, making the county wage proposal an official IEC recommendation. Senator Dave Rader and Representative Daniel Pay attempted to put two of those recommendations into law through Senate Bill 1403. Senator Julia Kurt also introduced Senate Bill 1575, which proposed additional changes to quality jobs. PFM estimated that quality jobs generated a little more than $2 in state revenue for every dollar invested. That is a positive fiscal return. But a positive return is not automatically the best return. Every dollar used for a business incentive is unavailable for education, workforce development, child care, health care, or infrastructure. Oklahoma should ask whether the same money could produce more public value somewhere else. The Oklahoma State Regents reported that every dollar of state appropriations invested in public colleges and universities generated $17.48 in economic output. Oklahoma's Promise generated $5.88 in economic output. These are not apples to apples with PFM's state revenue estimate, but they show why lawmakers should compare business incentives with investments in people before declaring a subsidy successful. The broader strategy has not produced broad prosperity. Oklahoma's median household income is about $65,000, compared with more than $80,000 nationally. Poverty remains high. Life expectancy is lower than the national average, and Oklahoma ranks near the bottom for health system performance. Those facts do not prove every incentive failed, but they show that the overall strategy has not delivered what families were promised. Oklahoma Tax Commission payment records show that quality jobs payments from 2015 through 2025 were concentrated among a relatively small group of recurring recipients. The first 5 on the list include the professional basketball club associated with the Oklahoma City Thunder, Boeing, Paycom, Devon Energy, and Continental Resources. These are not fragile startups. They are major companies or a professional sports franchise valued in the billions. The next 5 listed recipients also involve very large companies or transactions. HF Sinclair, Enable Midstream, Energy Transfer, ConocoPhillips, and Spirit Aero Systems. The values are approximate and fluctuate. They are used only to show scale. A large company should not be disqualified automatically, but vague assurances are not enough when public money is involved. $1 million can matter to the chief financial officer of a large corporation. But Oklahoma must know whether it mattered enough to change the company's decision, or whether it was merely large enough that no company would turn it down. For a company worth $50, $70, or $146 billion, taxpayers deserve clear evidence. Political contributions do not prove that a vote or a subsidy was bought. But campaign money, PACs, and lobbying help explain why large corporations often have more access than teachers, nurses, parents, or ordinary taxpayers. When a recipient has a PAC, a lobbyist, and direct access to state leaders, taxpayers deserve more than assurances that the deal was good. They deserve the financial analysis. A major incentive application should begin with a business case. The company should identify the project, the employment baseline, jobs to be created or retained, expected payroll, wage and benefit levels, required investment, and why public assistance is necessary. Commerce sees those project files. The tax commission receives enough information to calculate payments. But the same transparency has not been available for every recipient. The issue is not whether companies submitted false information. The issue is whether the independent evaluator received the original projections and enough project-level evidence to determine what was promised and what was delivered. Oklahoma does not need to release private employee salaries or trade secrets, but the IEC and its evaluator should be able to examine the complete project file under confidentiality rules. An NDA can protect employees, trade secrets, and negotiations from competitors. It should not block the state's legally authorized evaluator from measuring the public return. Oklahoma has already accepted that principle in SB 577 and SB 1990. Those laws point in the right direction, but Oklahoma needs a uniform standard across every major incentive program. Quality jobs is not entirely without guardrails. Payments are tied to job and wage requirements. Some agreements include compliance and repayment provisions. But the public still lacks one consolidated enforcement record showing which recipients failed requirements, how much was withheld, whether prior payments were recovered, and whether companies left after retention periods expired. The retention argument deserves scrutiny because two major oil and gas companies that had Oklahoma headquarters later selected Houston as the headquarters location following corporate changes. Devon Energy and Expand Energy kept Oklahoma operations, and headquarters decisions can result from mergers and industry consolidation. But the moves show why the original applications and retention terms matter. Continental Resources illustrates why Oklahoma must evaluate the complete subsidy package rather than each program in isolation. A company may benefit from a reduced industry tax rate, receive cash payroll rebates, obtain investment credits, and receive property tax or local assistance. Each program may have a rationale by itself. The real question is what the combined package cost and what additional public benefit each layer purchased. The correct but-for test is not whether each individual incentive can be associated with some economic activity. It is whether the company would have made the same investment and created the same jobs without the entire package of state and local assistance. A statewide return does not answer every company-level question. Oklahoma needs project-by-project proof. The answer is not to eliminate every business incentive overnight. Some projects are genuinely mobile. Some employers offer high wages, strong benefits, and long-term investment. But Oklahoma needs a new economic development model. The purpose should not be to make Oklahoma the cheapest state willing to write a check. It should be to build the educated, skilled, healthy workforce high-value employers seek. Savings identified from expired, underperforming, or unverified incentives should be redirected toward Oklahoma's promise, public colleges, career tech, apprenticeships, child care, rural health care, infrastructure, broadband, water, and community schools. These are not merely social programs. They are economic infrastructure. The new strategy should give the IEC complete confidential access to applications, projections, payment records, and performance reports. It should require enforceable clawbacks when recipients miss job, wage, investment, or retention commitments. It should also sunset every major program unless lawmakers affirmatively renew it after reviewing the evidence. Not a report acknowledged and forgotten. A recorded vote. Oklahoma's present strategy depends too heavily on being cheap. Cheap land, cheap power, lower wages, lower taxes, and another exemption. That may recruit some investment, but it drains money from the things that make a state genuinely competitive. Businesses should come to Oklahoma because the state has built what they need, not because Oklahoma was the lowest bidder.